Welcome, dear listeners, to the English Globe. I'm Adam, and I'm so glad you're joining us today. Whether you're walking, driving, cooking, or just relaxing, we're happy to have you with us. This podcast is for English learners and curious minds who want to understand the world while improving their English. And today, we're diving into a truly powerful and important topic, one that affects every country, every leader, and every one of us in some way.
That's right, Adam. Hello everyone, I'm Julia, and today's episode is all about the US-China-Russia triangle, a fascinating and complex relationship between the three most powerful nations in the world. We're going to explore how these countries interact, compete, and influence the world. And the big question we'll be asking today is this: who will lead the world in the future? America, China, or Russia? This is not just politics. It's about power, peace, progress, and people's lives across the globe.
Why is this topic so important? Because these three nations are shaping the global future right now. They decide where technology goes, they decide the rules of war and peace, they influence other nations, control big organizations, and affect everything from your internet to the price of food and fuel. Understanding their goals, their competition, and their alliances helps us understand the world we're living in and the one we're heading toward.
And for English learners, this is a great chance to listen to real conversations, build vocabulary, and learn how to discuss international topics in English. We'll use simple but meaningful sentences so everyone can follow along. This is your opportunity to grow both your knowledge and your English skills. So get ready for a deep and exciting journey with us.
But before we begin, dear listeners, we have a small request. If you enjoy this episode, please like this video and subscribe to our channel, The English Globe. It helps us continue creating podcasts like this for learners all around the world. We appreciate your support more than you know. It keeps this learning community strong and growing every day.
Also, we'd love to hear from you. In the comments section, please tell us where you're listening from. We know we have listeners from all across the globe. Are you from India, Nigeria, Brazil, Germany, Afghanistan? Let us know. And tell us, what do you think about today's topic? Who do you believe will lead the world in the future? The US, China, or Russia? Or maybe you think none of them will lead alone?
Your opinions really matter to us, and we might even read some of your comments in our next podcast. This show isn't just us talking. It's a global conversation, and your voice is part of it. So take a moment, scroll down, and leave a comment. Let's learn and explore together.
Now that we've set the stage, let's begin. In the next section, we'll take a quick look at history and how the relationships between the US, China, and Russia have evolved. Their past is full of conflict, cooperation, and change, and it helps explain how we got to where we are today. So stay with us as we explore the roots of this global triangle of power.
To truly understand the US-China-Russia triangle today, we must take a step back and look at history. The world we live in didn't appear overnight. It was shaped by war, peace, revolutions, alliances, and major shifts in power. The story of the United States, China, and Russia is not just about modern politics. It's about how three very different nations grew into global giants over time.
Let's start with the United States. After World War II, America became the most powerful country in the world. Its economy was booming. Its military was unmatched. The US led the creation of global institutions like the United Nations, the World Bank, and NATO. For decades, it acted as a kind of world policeman, promoting democracy, free trade, and Western values around the globe.
But the US wasn't alone. After World War II, the Soviet Union, now Russia, also emerged as a superpower. While America pushed democracy, the Soviets promoted communism. This led to a long and dangerous conflict known as the Cold War. It wasn't a shooting war, but it was full of fear, spies, nuclear weapons, and global competition. The US and the Soviet Union fought for influence in places like Vietnam, Cuba, and the Middle East.
And then came China. For many years, China was not considered a global power. It was poor and mostly isolated. But everything started to change in 1978 when Deng Xiaoping introduced economic reforms. China opened its doors to the world. It began building factories, trading with other countries, and investing in education and technology. Slowly, China rose from poverty to become the second largest economy in the world.
Now let's go back to the Cold War for a moment. During that time, something very interesting happened. Even though China was also communist, it didn't fully trust the Soviet Union. In the 1970s, the US saw a chance to improve its relationship with China and weaken the Soviet Union at the same time. So in 1972, US President Richard Nixon visited China. It was a major turning point. The US and China began to cooperate more closely.
That triangle, US, Soviet Union, and China, was already forming back then. Each country was trying to gain an advantage by playing one against the other. But the Cold War eventually ended in 1991, when the Soviet Union collapsed. Russia was born out of that collapse, and for a while, it lost much of its power and influence. The US became the world's only true superpower for many years.
But things didn't stay that way. In the 2000s, Russia, under President Vladimir Putin, began to rebuild its military and economy. It became more aggressive on the world stage, invading Georgia in 2008 and Crimea in 2014. Meanwhile, China continued to grow stronger, launching huge infrastructure projects and expanding its military reach, especially in the South China Sea.
So now we have a new version of the old triangle. The United States is still powerful, but facing more challenges. China is rising fast, both economically and technologically. And Russia is using strategy, energy, and military action to maintain its influence. These three countries are not just competitors. They are shaping the entire future of our planet.
This new triangle is more complex than the old Cold War version. Today, China and Russia are closer than ever. They conduct joint military exercises. They support each other diplomatically. They both oppose many U.S. policies, especially in Asia and Eastern Europe. At the same time, both countries are trying to grow their influence in Africa, Latin America, and the Middle East.
But don't forget, the US still has major strengths. It leads powerful alliances like NATO. It has the world's strongest military, most advanced technology companies, and many allies in Europe and Asia. And its dollar is still the global currency. The US, China, and Russia all bring something different to the table. And that's what makes this triangle so important and so dangerous.
Understanding how we got here is the key to understanding where we might be headed. History shows us that alliances shift, power rises and falls, and small events, like a war, an election, or a trade deal, can change everything. The past isn't just a story, it's a map that helps us make sense of today's headlines and tomorrow's possibilities.
In the next section, we'll zoom in on the United States. We'll look at what makes it powerful today, what problems it faces, and how it's trying to keep its leadership role in the world. So stay with us, dear listeners. You're listening to the English Globe, where we explore the world and learn English at the same time.
Let's now take a closer look at the United States of America, a country that has held global power for over 70 years. From military strength to economic leadership, from Hollywood movies to university research, America has shaped the world in many ways. But what exactly makes the United States a superpower? And can it keep that position as China rises and Russia pushes back?
To begin with, the US has the largest economy in the world. Its gross domestic product, or GDP, is measured in trillions of dollars. American companies like Apple, Google, Microsoft, and Amazon are not only giants in the US, but also leaders in the global market. People in almost every country use US technology, shop through US platforms, or invest in US stocks.
But it's not just the economy. The U.S. military is the most powerful and advanced on the planet. The country has hundreds of military bases around the world, including in Germany, Japan, South Korea, and the Middle East. Its navy sails in every ocean, its air force can reach any target, and it holds the largest collection of nuclear weapons along with Russia.
America also has something special called soft power. This is not about weapons or money. It's about influence through culture, education, and ideas. Hollywood films, pop music, fast food, sports, and social media all help spread American culture. English itself has become the international language of business, science, and diplomacy, thanks in part to America's global role.
Another major strength is the U.S. system of alliances. The U.S. is the leader of NATO, a military group of 31 countries, mostly from Europe. It also has strong ties with countries like Japan, South Korea, Australia, and the United Kingdom. These partnerships give America global reach and support. Few countries can match the depth and number of U.S. allies.
The US dollar is another sign of power. It is the world's main currency for trade. Countries keep dollars in their central banks. Oil and gold are priced in dollars. When people lose trust in their own money, they often turn to the dollar. This gives the US a special power in world finance. It also makes American sanctions more effective, because many countries rely on the US financial system.
American universities and research centers are world leaders. Schools like Harvard, MIT, and Stanford are training future scientists, engineers, and business leaders from all over the world. U.S. labs are developing medicines, new technology, and innovations in energy, space, and AI. The country still leads in science and research, even though others like China are catching up fast.
But of course, no superpower is perfect, and the US has real challenges. One of the biggest is internal division. The country is politically divided between left and right, Democrats and Republicans. Sometimes, it seems like Americans can't agree on basic issues. This division weakens unity and can slow down decisions in government and foreign policy.
Another issue is economic inequality. While many Americans are rich, others struggle with low wages, healthcare costs, and student debt. Some people feel left behind by globalization and modern technology. These feelings can lead to anger, protests, and even violence, like what happened at the U.S. Capitol in 2021. A divided society is not a strong society.
America also faces international criticism. Some people around the world see the US as arrogant or aggressive. Wars in Iraq and Afghanistan damaged its image. Others feel the US supports freedom only when it helps its interests. At the same time, rivals like China and Russia use this criticism to try to lower US influence around the world.
Then there's the competition from China. China is growing fast, building roads and ports across Asia and Africa, investing in new technologies, and increasing its military power. Many countries now trade more with China than with the US. That creates a challenge for America. How do you stay number one when someone else is rising quickly?
Still, the US has key strengths that can't be ignored. It's a country built on freedom of speech, free markets, and innovation. People from around the world still dream of studying, working, or living in America. Immigrants bring energy, ideas, and talent. That human diversity is one of America's hidden powers, and it keeps the country moving forward.
Another major advantage is technology. America is home to most of the companies that shape our digital world. Social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Search engines like Google. Operating systems like Windows and iOS. Even AI tools and space exploration, NASA and companies like SpaceX, are leading the future.
So where does this leave us? The United States is still the leading superpower, but it's being challenged like never before. The next decades will test its ability to adapt, unite, and lead in a changing world. If the US can solve its internal problems and renew its global partnerships, it may keep its place at the top. If not, we may see a new balance of power.
In the next section, we'll turn our attention to China, a country that went from poverty to global power in just 4 decades. What makes China so strong? What are its goals? And what kind of world does it want to lead? Stay with us, dear listeners, as we continue our journey through the global triangle of power. You're listening to the English Globe, where the world speaks English.
Now it's time to focus on the second key player in the global triangle, China. Over the past 40 years, China has transformed from a poor and mostly agricultural country into a global economic powerhouse. Its rise is one of the most important changes in modern history. In this section, we'll explore how China grew so fast, what it wants in the future, and how it challenges both the United States and Russia on the global stage.
Let's start with the economic rise. In 1978, China began a major shift under leader Deng Xiaoping. He introduced economic reforms that opened the country to trade and investment. China began to produce cheap goods, build factories, and sell products to the world. It became known as the world's factory, making everything from clothes and electronics to toys and tools.
Today, China is the second largest economy in the world. Just behind the US cities like Shenzhen, Shanghai, and Beijing are now centers of business and innovation. Chinese companies like Alibaba, Tencent, Huawei, and BYD are global players. China exports goods all over the world and imports the resources it needs to keep growing. Its rise has helped lift millions of people out of poverty.
But China is not only focused on business, it also wants power and respect. In recent years, Chinese leaders have pushed for more control in global organizations like the United Nations and the World Health Organization. They have increased their presence in Africa, Latin America, and Southeast Asia, offering money, infrastructure, and development in exchange for influence.
One of China's biggest strategies is the Belt and Road Initiative, also known as BRI. This is a massive global project to build roads, railways, ports, and energy systems in over 140 countries. It helps China create trade routes and connect economies across Asia, Africa, and Europe. Critics say it creates debt and political control, but supporters say it brings growth and jobs to poor regions.
China is also investing heavily in technology. It wants to lead the world in artificial intelligence, 5G networks, robotics, green energy, and electric vehicles. The government supports Chinese tech firms and protects them from foreign competition. It has built its own internet system and platforms like WeChat, TikTok, Douyin, and Baidu. In many areas, China is no longer following the West, it's leading.
Its military is also growing fast. China now has the largest navy in the world by number of ships. It's building aircraft carriers, advanced missiles, cyber weapons, and space programs. The country is focused on gaining power in the South China Sea, where it builds artificial islands with military bases. This area is important for trade and is claimed by several countries.
China's military goals are closely linked to its national pride and history. One key issue is Taiwan. China sees Taiwan as part of its territory, while Taiwan sees itself as independent. The US supports Taiwan with weapons and diplomacy, which makes China very angry. This conflict is one of the most dangerous flashpoints in global politics today.
But China also has serious challenges. One major issue is its aging population. For many years, China had a one-child policy. Now there are not enough young workers to support the economy. The population is shrinking, and this could limit future growth. Another challenge is the lack of freedom. China has strict control over speech, media, religion, and political activity.
Many people are afraid to speak against the government. The Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, watches citizens closely using technology, cameras, and phone apps. People are given social credit scores based on behavior. This level of surveillance and control worries many human rights groups and foreign governments.
China also struggles with its global image. Some countries welcome Chinese money, but others fear its influence. Accusations of spying, unfair trade, military expansion, and poor labor conditions have made some countries cautious. Tensions with the US, India, Japan, and others have grown in recent years. There's a global debate. Is China a helpful partner or a threat?
Despite the criticism, China continues to push forward. Its leaders believe they are building a new world order where the West no longer controls everything. They argue that every country should have the right to develop in its own way. China wants respect, security, and stability, not just money. It dreams of being a leader, not just an economic one, but a political and cultural one too.
And that brings us back to the big question: will China lead the world? It has the economy, the technology, and a clear plan. But it also faces many problems, both inside and outside. Whether it becomes the next superpower depends on how it handles those problems and how other nations respond to its rise.
In the next section, we'll shift our focus to the third player in this triangle: Russia. It may not be as rich as the US or China, but it plays a powerful and unique role in global affairs. From its military strategy to its energy resources, Russia is a country the world cannot ignore. Stay with us, dear listeners. You're listening to the English Globe, where knowledge meets language. Welcome back, dear listeners. Now let's turn to the third powerful nation in this global triangle: Russia. While the United States and China are often in the spotlight, Russia plays a very different but important role. It may not have the same economic power, but it uses strategy, military force, and energy control to influence the world. Russia doesn't try to lead with size, but with sharp moves and smart timing.
To understand Russia today, we need to understand its history and identity. After the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, Russia lost much of its power. It went through a period of chaos, poverty, and political change. But in 2000, Vladimir Putin became president, and since then, Russia has worked hard to restore its global strength, especially through military force and geopolitical tactics.
Unlike China, which builds roads and factories abroad, or the US, which uses diplomacy and alliances, Russia uses disruption. It tests boundaries, challenges the West, and tries to create confusion. It supports friendly governments, funds secret operations, and uses cyber attacks to influence other countries. This is why many experts call Russia a strategic disruptor.
One of Russia's main tools is its military. Russia has one of the world's largest armies and thousands of nuclear weapons. It has fought wars in Chechnya, Georgia, Syria, and Ukraine. These wars are not just about land, they are about showing the world that Russia can act without permission from the West. The message is clear: Russia will defend its interests, no matter the cost.
The war in Ukraine, which began in 2014 and escalated in 2022, is a perfect example. Russia annexed Crimea, a part of Ukraine, and launched a full-scale invasion to stop Ukraine from joining NATO. The West responded with sanctions and military support for Ukraine. But despite economic damage and international criticism, Russia continues its military campaign, refusing to back down.
This conflict shows how Russia sees the world. It does not want to follow a global order led by the US or Western Europe. Instead, Russia wants a multipolar world where no one country dominates. It wants to be respected as a major power, especially in Eastern Europe, Central Asia, and the Middle East, where it has strong historical and political interests.
Another powerful weapon for Russia is energy. Russia is one of the biggest producers of oil and natural gas in the world. It sells energy to many European and Asian countries. This gives Russia economic power and political leverage. When countries depend on your fuel, you can influence their decisions. Russia has used this tool many times in global negotiations.
Russia also invests in media influence and cyber warfare. Channels like RT Russia Today broadcast news in many languages, offering a different perspective from Western media. Russian hackers have been accused of attacking companies, stealing data, and even influencing elections. These activities allow Russia to shape global opinions and weaken trust in Western democracies.
But Russia also has many internal problems. Its economy is smaller than that of the US or China. It depends too much on oil and gas, which makes it vulnerable to global prices. Many young Russians leave the country for better jobs and more freedom. Corruption is widespread, and political opposition is often silenced. These issues limit Russia's long-term strength.
Russia's population is also shrinking, just like China's. The country is aging, and life expectancy is lower than in most developed nations. The war in Ukraine has caused major economic isolation, and thousands of people, especially professionals, have left the country. Sanctions have cut Russia off from global banks, technology, and trade. This could slow its ability to compete globally.
Still, Russia is not without friends. It is building stronger ties with China, selling energy, holding joint military exercises, and voting together in the United Nations. It also works closely with Iran, Syria, North Korea, and some African governments. Russia's goal is clear: to create a group of countries that resist Western pressure and support a new global balance of power.
So where does Russia stand in this triangle? It's not as rich as the US or China, but it is dangerous, smart, and strategic. It knows how to use its tools, military, energy, information, to achieve big goals with limited resources. Russia may not want to lead the world, but it definitely wants to prevent others from leading without it.
That's what makes Russia such a powerful force. It doesn't follow the rules, it rewrites them. Whether you agree with its actions or not, you can't ignore Russia. It's a master of disruption, a country that turns global tension into opportunity, and one that always plays a long game.
In the next section, we'll compare the military power of all three: the US, China, and Russia. Who has the strongest army? Who controls the oceans? Who leads in space and cyber war? And what does that mean for the future of global peace? Or global conflict? Stay with us. You're listening to The English Globe, where world issues meet simple English.
In this section, we're going to explore one of the most critical parts of the global triangle: military power and alliances. War, peace, influence, and even diplomacy often depend on who holds military strength and who stands with whom. The US, China, and Russia all have powerful armed forces, but they use them in very different ways.
Let's begin with the United States, which is widely considered to have the most powerful military in the world. The US spends more on defense than the next 10 countries combined. It has over 800 military bases across the globe, from Europe and Asia to Africa and the Middle East. Its Navy, Air Force, and nuclear arsenal are unmatched in size, technology, and global reach.
American military power is also built on alliances. The most famous one is NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. It includes 31 countries, mostly in Europe and North America. NATO members promise to defend each other if attacked. This alliance gives the US a huge advantage. It doesn't fight alone. It has support from countries like the UK, France, Germany, and Canada.
The US also has strong military partnerships in Asia, including Japan, South Korea, Australia, and the Philippines. It maintains troops in these countries and holds regular joint exercises. These alliances help the US balance China's power in the Indo-Pacific region, where tensions are rising, especially around Taiwan and the South China Sea.
Now let's look at China. China has built the largest navy in the world in terms of ship numbers. It's also increasing its number of aircraft carriers, building long-range missiles, and developing high-tech weapons. China's military is known as the People's Liberation Army, or PLA, and it's rapidly becoming more modern, organized, and ready to act far beyond its borders.
One of China's main focuses is controlling its neighborhood. It claims almost all of the South China Sea, a vital route for global trade. To enforce that claim, it has built artificial islands with runways and missile systems. China also holds military drills near Taiwan, which it views as a breakaway province. These moves have raised fears of future conflict in the region.
China does not have formal military alliances like NATO, but it is building security partnerships, especially with countries that share its interest in reducing U.S. power. It conducts joint drills with Russia, provides military aid to countries in Africa and Central Asia, and is part of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, a group that focuses on security and regional cooperation.
Speaking of Russia, its military strategy is very different. Russia has fewer troops and a smaller budget, but it uses its forces aggressively. It focuses on fast attacks, hybrid warfare, and psychological tactics. It invaded Georgia in 2008, Crimea in 2014, and Ukraine in 2022. Russia also operates in Syria, Libya, and other parts of the Middle East, supporting friendly regimes.
Russia is known for its nuclear power. Alongside the U.S., it holds the world's largest number of nuclear weapons. These weapons are not meant to be used, but they are a powerful tool for deterrence, which means scaring enemies into staying away. Russia also has hypersonic missiles and advanced air defense systems, giving it a strong edge in high-tech warfare.
Russia and China have grown closer in recent years. They hold joint naval and air exercises, share military technology, and support each other in the United Nations. Though they are not official allies, their military cooperation sends a strong message to the West. We stand together against US influence. This partnership is changing the balance of global power.
Now, let's talk about cyber warfare and space defense, the new frontiers of military power. The U.S. has created a space force and invests heavily in cyber defense. China and Russia also run state-sponsored hacking operations, targeting companies, governments, and critical systems. These silent wars can damage economies, steal secrets, and disrupt life without firing a bullet.
The fight for control of space is growing fast. Satellites are now essential for communication, GPS, banking, and military targeting. All three countries are developing ways to destroy or disable satellites. This makes space a possible battlefield in the future. Whoever controls space and cyberspace could have a huge advantage in future conflicts.
Military power is not just about weapons. It's about strategy, alliances, and influence. The U.S. has global reach through NATO and Pacific partners. China is expanding its power regionally and globally. Russia, though smaller, plays a dangerous and strategic game. All three are preparing for future threats, not only on land and sea, but also in the air, cyber, and space domains.
So what does this mean for the world? It means that the balance of power is not stable. With powerful weapons, rising tensions, and no clear rules in cyber and space, the risk of conflict is real. But strong militaries also prevent war by making countries think twice before attacking. In the end, power is not just about fighting, but about avoiding the fight through strength.
In the next section, we'll shift from bombs to business. We'll explore the economic influence of the U.S., China, and Russia. Who trades the most? Who controls global supply chains? Who sets the rules of finance? Stay tuned for a deep look into money, trade wars, and economic power, right here on the English Globe. Economic power is often as important as military strength in shaping the world today. The United States, China, and Russia each use their economic resources differently to expand influence. The U.S. leads with innovation, global finance, and the dominant role of the dollar. It has many major companies driving industries like technology, pharmaceuticals, and aerospace, and Wall Street's decisions affect markets worldwide.
The US dollar's status as the global reserve currency gives America enormous financial power. It controls international payment systems like SWIFT, allowing it to impose sanctions that can isolate countries economically. This financial tool has been used against nations such as Iran, North Korea, and Russia, shaping global behavior without firing a single shot. Economic sanctions have become a key part of modern diplomacy.
Meanwhile, China has become the world's largest exporter and the second largest economy. Its factories produce everything from electronics to clothing for global markets. Through initiatives like the Belt and Road, China is investing billions to build infrastructure in Asia, Africa, and Latin America, strengthening economic and political ties. This expansion is shifting the global trade map and increasing China's influence.
The US and China have also engaged in a long trade war. Starting in 2018, the US accused China of unfair practices such as intellectual property theft and currency manipulation. Tariffs were raised on hundreds of billions of dollars of goods, causing economic uncertainty worldwide. The conflict revealed how intertwined the two economies are, with companies relying on both markets for supply chains and sales.
China is responding by boosting its own innovation and pushing for self-reliance in key technologies like semiconductors and green energy. The competition goes beyond tariffs. It's a race for technological leadership and setting global rules for trade and digital commerce. Both countries see this as essential to national security and economic future.
Russia's economy is smaller but highly dependent on natural resources, especially oil and natural gas. It supplies a large share of Europe's energy needs, giving Russia significant political leverage. However, the war in Ukraine and Western sanctions have hit the Russian economy hard, forcing it to seek closer economic ties with China and other non-Western partners to bypass restrictions.
Sanctions limit Russia's access to global finance and technology, weakening its economic growth. Yet its energy exports remain a crucial bargaining chip, allowing Russia to maintain influence in energy-dependent regions despite challenges. The country's economy faces structural issues, such as dependence on fossil fuels and limited diversification.
On the digital front, China is pioneering the use of a government-backed digital currency, the digital yuan. This system could reduce reliance on the US dollar and provide China with more control over international financial transactions. Such a move might help China and its partners avoid sanctions and increase their financial independence from Western systems.
The U.S. has responded by scrutinizing Chinese technology companies and restricting their access to American markets and technologies. This reflects a broader struggle over control of data, digital infrastructure, and the future of Internet governance. Control over technology platforms is now seen as a new form of economic and political power.
Finally, economic partnerships shape influence as well. The US aligns with Canada, Mexico, the European Union, and G7 nations, while China leads major Asian trade groups like RCEP. Russia participates in organizations like the Eurasian Economic Union, seeking regional cooperation outside Western-dominated systems. These blocs reflect competing visions of global economic order.
Economic strength affects every part of life, from jobs and technology to energy prices and global stability. As the US, China, and Russia compete in trade, investment, and innovation, the world watches carefully. Their economic rivalry will shape the future of global cooperation, or conflict, in the years to come. Diplomacy is the art of managing relationships between countries, and it is a key battleground for the US, China, and Russia. Each country uses diplomacy to build alliances, resolve conflicts, and increase influence. But their approaches are very different. The United States relies heavily on long-standing alliances and international institutions to lead global diplomacy and promote its values.
American diplomacy focuses on promoting democracy, human rights, and free trade. The US supports international organizations like the United Nations, NATO, and the World Trade Organization to maintain global order. It often uses diplomatic pressure, economic sanctions, and military alliances to influence other countries. However, critics argue that sometimes the US applies double standards or acts in its own interest over others.
China's diplomatic strategy is more focused on building economic partnerships and regional influence. China prefers bilateral relationships, direct deals with individual countries, rather than relying on Western-led organizations. Its Belt and Road Initiative is a diplomatic tool, creating economic dependence and political goodwill by investing in infrastructure across Asia, Africa, and Europe.
China also promotes the idea of non-interference in other countries' domestic affairs. This principle appeals to many developing nations that want help without conditions on their political systems or human rights records. China's diplomacy offers an alternative model to Western approaches, focusing on mutual respect and economic development rather than ideology.
Russia, meanwhile, uses a mix of traditional diplomacy, military power, and covert actions to protect its interests. Its foreign policy is often assertive and sometimes aggressive. Russia builds alliances with countries that oppose Western influence, like Iran, Syria, and Venezuela. It also uses energy exports, cyber operations, and disinformation campaigns as diplomatic tools.
One example of Russia's diplomatic style is its use of hybrid warfare, combining military threats with information warfare and economic pressure. This approach creates confusion and weakens opponents without open conflict. Russia's involvement in conflicts like those in Ukraine and Syria demonstrates how it uses diplomacy backed by force and covert activities to expand its influence.
All three countries also compete for influence in important regions like Africa, Latin America, and the Middle East. Africa is a growing focus for China, with billions invested in infrastructure and natural resources. The US and Russia also have interests there, supporting allies and seeking new partnerships. This competition shapes the political and economic future of many developing nations.
Latin America has traditionally been a US sphere of influence, but China and Russia have increased their presence. China provides loans and infrastructure, while Russia offers military support and political alliances. These efforts challenge US dominance in the region and create a more multipolar diplomatic landscape.
In the Middle East, the Triangle's influence is also visible. The US has been involved in the region for decades, supporting allies like Israel and Saudi Arabia. Russia has military bases in Syria and strong ties with Iran. China's influence is growing through investments and energy deals. The region remains a hotspot for diplomatic tension and strategic competition.
Diplomatic success requires understanding culture, history, and global trends. The US, China, and Russia all use diplomacy to shape narratives and build coalitions. But they face challenges from shifting alliances, domestic politics, and global crises. The way they manage diplomacy today will influence global peace, stability, and cooperation for decades.
As we've seen, diplomacy is not just about talking. It's about power, trust, and strategy. The US, China, and Russia each bring different tools and visions to the diplomatic table. Their interactions shape the world's future in ways that affect all of us, from security and trade to climate and human rights.
As powerful as the United States, China, and Russia are, none of them can solve the world's biggest problems alone. Issues like climate change, pandemics, nuclear weapons, and economic inequality affect everyone. These challenges cross borders and require cooperation, even among rivals. In this section, we'll explore how these three countries work together and how they often clash in facing global problems.
Climate change is one of the most serious issues of our time. Rising temperatures, stronger storms, and disappearing ice threaten the future of our planet. The US and China are the world's top two carbon emitters, with Russia also high on the list. If these three countries don't take action, it will be hard for the world to limit global warming and protect the environment.
There have been moments of cooperation. In 2015, both the US and China signed the Paris Agreement, committing to reduce emissions. But political changes and economic priorities often get in the way. The US left the agreement in 2017 under one president and rejoined in 2021 under another. China has promised to be carbon neutral by 2060, but continues to build coal plants at home and abroad.
Russia, too, signed the Paris deal, but its economy relies heavily on fossil fuels, making green reforms difficult. Many fear that Russia may not fully commit to climate action, especially when it uses oil and gas for political leverage. So while all three nations talk about climate, their actions often fall short, and the planet continues to suffer.
Another major global challenge is health and pandemics. The COVID-19 pandemic showed how quickly a virus can spread across borders, bringing death and economic collapse. It also showed the weakness of global cooperation. Instead of working together, many countries blamed each other, competed for vaccines, and closed borders. Trust between the US, China, and Russia was tested, and often failed.
China faced criticism for how it handled the early days of the COVID outbreak. The US accused China of hiding important information. China responded by criticizing Western media and promoting its own vaccines abroad. Russia also used the crisis to promote its vaccine, Sputnik V, and strengthen its ties with countries in Africa and Latin America. Instead of joining forces, the pandemic became a new battleground for influence.
Nuclear weapons are another global danger. The US and Russia hold the world's largest nuclear arsenals, with China rapidly expanding its own. All three are part of the Non-Proliferation Treaty, which aims to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons. But arms control agreements have weakened in recent years. Trust is low, and the risk of misunderstanding or conflict is rising.
Some treaties have even collapsed. The US and Russia both pulled out of key agreements like the INF Treaty, which limited medium-range missiles. Meanwhile, China has refused to join arms control talks, saying its arsenal is still much smaller than the other two. The result is an arms race that could be very dangerous if not managed with diplomacy and mutual understanding.
Cybersecurity is a newer challenge, but just as serious. Hackers from all three countries have been accused of attacking banks, power grids, hospitals, and government systems. These attacks can happen without warning and cause real damage, but international rules for cyberspace are still weak. There's little agreement on how to stop these attacks or punish those who launch them.
Despite their differences, the US, China, and Russia do sometimes cooperate, especially in areas like space exploration, science, and public health. Scientists from all three countries have worked together to fight disease and explore space. These moments show that cooperation is possible when politics are set aside and common goals are shared.
But even cooperation can turn into competition. China's space program is growing fast, with missions to the Moon and Mars. The US sees this as a challenge to its own leadership in space. Russia, once America's key space partner, is now turning toward China. Instead of joining forces for the future, we may see more space rivalry in the years ahead.
The truth is, the world faces problems that are too big for one country to solve alone. Whether it's the next pandemic, a climate crisis, or a global financial crash, the US, China, and Russia will need to find common ground. Their choices will shape not only their own futures, but the future of the entire world. Cooperation is not just an option, it's a necessity.
But cooperation requires trust, and trust is in short supply. Political tensions, military rivalry, and economic competition make it hard to work together. Leaders must ask, will we let our differences destroy us? Or can we rise above them to solve problems together? That's the challenge for the 21st century, and the answer is still being written.
In this new global triangle, one powerful tool often goes unnoticed: media and public opinion. Whether it's news, social media, films, or online influencers, the way a country tells its story shapes how the world sees it. Today, information spreads faster than ever. A tweet, a video, or a viral meme can change how people think about governments, conflicts, or cultures in seconds.
The United States has long led the world in global storytelling. Hollywood films, American news networks, and global social platforms like YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter all carry American values, ideas, and culture across borders. Whether people agree or disagree, US media plays a huge role in setting global narratives about democracy, freedom, human rights, and global leadership.
But that leadership is being challenged. China has built its own massive media empire. From state-run outlets like CGTN and Xinhua to platforms like TikTok, it's telling the world a very different story. China uses media to promote a message of stability, growth, and non-interference. It presents itself as a peaceful rising power, offering partnership, not domination.
Inside China, the government strictly controls news, social media, and search results. Censorship is used to block critical content and promote patriotic stories. Outside China, the goal is different: influence without force. Chinese media invests in Africa, Southeast Asia, and Latin America to spread its narrative and shape the way the world views its actions and policies.
Russia has mastered the darker side of media influence. Through outlets like RT and Sputnik, it spreads messages that often criticize the West and question facts. It uses disinformation, trolls, and fake news to divide societies, confuse citizens, and weaken trust in democratic institutions. Russia's strategy isn't just to tell its story, it's to undermine others.
This form of warfare is called information warfare, and it's powerful. It doesn't use guns or tanks, but instead manipulates emotions, identities, and beliefs. It targets people's minds, not just their borders. It can change how people vote, who they trust, and what they believe is true. This makes media one of the most dangerous and powerful tools in modern geopolitics.
Even in democratic countries, the battle over truth and trust is growing. Fake news, political bias, and algorithm-driven echo chambers make it hard for people to agree on basic facts. The same story can appear completely different on different channels. This division is weakening democratic societies from within, and foreign powers are taking advantage.
Public opinion matters. Leaders now govern in a world where people's opinions are shaped not by long speeches, but by short videos, viral trends, and emotional headlines. A strong media strategy can boost a nation's image, and a single scandal can destroy it. In the global triangle, public opinion is a new battlefield, and every country is trying to win hearts and minds.
The US still enjoys soft power, its ability to influence through culture, values, and appeal. But China is investing heavily in media training, cultural exchanges, and state broadcasting abroad. Russia continues to focus on confusion and division. Each country sees media not just as entertainment or information, but as a weapon of power.
We must also think about how young people view the world. What stories do they grow up with? What values do they learn through movies, YouTube, or TikTok? What voices are they listening to? The next generation will shape the future of politics and peace, and the media they consume today will shape the leaders they become tomorrow.
That's why media literacy is so important. In this age of information wars, knowing how to spot propaganda, question sources, and verify facts is a powerful skill. It protects societies from manipulation and gives people the tools to make informed choices. Media can divide, but it can also unite, educate, and inspire if used wisely.
As we've seen in this section, the struggle for global leadership isn't just fought with weapons or money. It's also a battle of narratives. The country that can tell the most powerful story, control the digital conversation, and earn the trust of the global public may win the 21st century war, not through violence, but through influence.
And so we ask you, dear listener, whose story do you believe? What voices do you trust? How do you shape your own opinions in a world full of noise? The power of media is in your hands and your mind. Think carefully, listen deeply, and question boldly. That's how real global citizens grow. As we come to the final part of our journey, we arrive at the big question: who will lead the world? The United States, China, and Russia each have their strengths, ambitions, and visions for the future. But in a rapidly changing world filled with uncertainty, power is no longer just about who has the most money or the biggest army. It's about who can adapt, inspire, and bring others together.
The United States has long been the global leader. Its power is built on a strong economy, cutting-edge technology, military strength, and deep networks of allies. Its universities attract students from around the world. Its companies build the future of medicine, space, and communication. Its values, like democracy, freedom of speech, and human rights, continue to inspire many.
But American leadership faces challenges. Internally, the country is deeply divided. Political fights, racial tensions, and rising inequality create uncertainty. On the global stage, some allies question if the U.S. can still lead responsibly. Others feel left out of the Western-led system. To stay on top, the U.S. must rebuild trust, at home and abroad, and prove that its model still works.
China has become the strongest challenger. With rapid economic growth, global trade networks, and a clear long-term plan, China is rising with purpose. It offers a different model, focused on control, stability, and development, without Western-style democracy. Many countries see China as a partner that brings investment and respect, not lectures about politics or values.
China wants to shape the 21st century with its own ideas. It builds roads, ports, and railways across continents. It leads in green energy and digital finance. Its tech firms rival the West's best. But China's rise is not welcomed by everyone. Concerns about censorship, surveillance, and military aggression, especially around Taiwan and the South China Sea, make many countries nervous.
And then there's Russia, a nation that doesn't aim to lead in the same way, but seeks to prevent others from dominating. Russia disrupts rather than builds. Its strategy is to challenge the West, build alliances with dissatisfied nations, and maintain influence through energy and military power. It is less about global leadership and more about global resistance.
Russia wants a world where no one country or alliance can set the rules. It rejects what it sees as U.S. or Western domination. But Russia's future role depends heavily on its own economy, public support, and its outcomes in Ukraine. Sanctions, isolation, and demographic decline could limit its ability to project power far into the future.
But maybe the question isn't who will lead the world, but how the world will be led. The world today is multipolar. Power is spread among many players: India, the European Union, Brazil, Indonesia, and others. Technology, climate, pandemics, and migration affect all nations. No single country can solve everything. Leadership now means building coalitions, not just giving orders.
The next global leader, if one exists, may be the country that learns how to cooperate and compete at the same time, how to protect its people while helping others, and how to use power not just for control, but for progress. The real power may lie in influence, trust, innovation, and the ability to solve shared problems, not dominate rivals.
The future may not be led by tanks and missiles, but by ideas, technology, diplomacy, and climate solutions. A country that can lead in artificial intelligence, energy transition, global health, and ethical leadership might shape the next era more than one with just a large army. In that race, the US, China, and Russia all have pieces of the puzzle, but none have the full picture.
As the world faces new challenges, AI, climate change, water shortages, cyber war, aging populations, it needs visionaries, not just victors. It needs leaders who can bring people together, not push them apart. It needs bold action, but also deep wisdom. The nation that can lead with both might not only rise, It might redefine what leadership means.
So, dear listeners, maybe the most important question isn't who will lead the world, but what kind of world do we want to live in? A peaceful world? A connected world? A fair and sustainable world? If enough people ask that question and act on it, maybe leadership won't belong to just one flag or one country, but to all of us, together.
Thank you for joining us on this deep and powerful journey through global power, politics, and possibility. We've explored how the US, China, and Russia shape the world, and how the future is still open to many paths. We hope today's podcast helped you think critically, learn globally, and grow in English and understanding.
We'd love to hear from you. What do you think? Who is best positioned to lead the world? Which country inspires you most, or worries you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow our channel for more thought-provoking English content.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay connected with the English globe, where language meets the world. Goodbye, and take care.